Hey everyone, and welcome to Holding the Line with HtLwGY6 Counseling. I'm Peggy, and this is Brittany. This is a space where we get real about the shit nobody wants to talk about: mental health, life, trauma, healing, and everything in between. Sometimes we get clinical, sometimes we get messy, but it's always honest. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't therapy, and it's not a substitute for professional care. We're not here to provide therapy, diagnose, or treat. If you're struggling with mental health, please reach out to a licensed provider. You don't have to go through it alone. We've got your six. We're just two trauma therapists showing up as humans first, ready to have real, unfiltered conversations about the stuff that matters. We're here to break the stigma, share what we've learned from both sides of the therapy room, and talk about the challenges people face every day, especially in the veteran and first responder communities. Whether it's trauma, burnout, relationships, identity, or just getting through the week, we believe that these conversations matter. They deserve space, and that's what we're holding the line for. So let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Holding the Line with HtLwGY6 Counseling. I feel like I'm echoing. That's obnoxious. Anyway, sorry, this is season 2, episode 4, when survival mode turns off. Today, we're talking about big people and their responses in relation to the kids that we've been talking about before. This felt like the natural flow of things to be a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say meaningful, but like directive in our episodes this year. We are chaotic, but I'm trying to make that
big
work.
responses.
Yeah, big people, big responses. And the big truth about survival mode and trauma responses and things that get turned on and off for people.
Yep, because we see this a lot, and it's those that are like, didn't realize they had PTSD, or like it came out later in life, and they're like, what do you mean I have PTSD? Huh? That doesn't make sense. I didn't show 20 years ago, or like
That's
they
because
didn't
you've been living in
understand.
survival
Yeah.
mode, bro.
Yeah, they didn't understand like why it showed up after retirement and the floodgates released, or like it showed a year or two later after like the big incident happened. Like
Right.
Delayed trauma responses are pretty typical. They're not weaknesses, failure, or like you losing your edge.
Trauma runs on safety.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel safe enough to feel the things you need to feel, then you're not going to feel them until it's too late.
I think it's a pretty, like, it's a stereotype thing. Like, you have to have PTSD, like, immediately after the big event happened. And, like, I think that is what has happened, and, like, it's been perpetuated in society. If you don't have that immediate, like, diagnosis right after it happened, then you don't have PTSD. Or they're comparing themselves to their buddies of, like, but I don't have what he has. Or my event wasn't as bad as what he had.
Yeah. Oh, also, there's the criteria. What is it, 6 months, right, from
Mm-hmm.
the incident in order to have the diagnosis? But some people don't show it for years because they don't slow down for years, or they're not able to even feel the things they, I want to say, need to feel. Your nervous system is doing its job. It's keeping you alive, and that's all that it's focused on. If everything else fails, you're going to at least survive. You might not be surviving productively or functionally, but you are alive nonetheless. Your brain prioritizes certain mechanisms over others because the rest of them don't matter and they're not important for survival.
So why trauma doesn't hit during the call, the deployment, and the shift? Survival mode suppresses symptoms. Oof. So when you're actively serving, like on patrol, on deployment, running calls, holding command, the brain prioritizes these things: your speed, focus, task completion, and emotional suppression.
Emotional suppression. The best way I can describe this for a lot of, and I hope for the people that were like, you're in the military, you're on deployment, you're in combat, maybe not, you're a first responder and you're doing all the hard things on a day's call. You can't just stop and have a meltdown. You could, but most will not, because they're in that survival, they're in that mode right now of just doing what they need to do and going through the motions until after it's over. And not even then sometimes. Not till like they're sitting in the room with us and we're like, what was that like for you? And then they're just like, oh my God, right? Because no one's ever asked and they've never been able to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of ours, especially like our veterans, our cops and stuff like that, it's mission first, feelings later. And like that's something that I think a lot of them it's been ingrained in. I don't have time for my feelings.
Well, in a survival situation, there are no time for feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That you could deal with that later, but there,
Get you
unfortunately,
in
there's
trouble. Feelings get you in trouble.
right. But usually there isn't a later,
Mm-hmm.
right? How many times does that stuff happen? And they're like, oh, well, you can debrief it later, or if you're in, a critical incident, they're not going to the debriefings. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not talking about it with their coworkers or fellow soldiers or what have you, because why would they? That makes them look weak. Oh man, that messed me up. You don't say. It messed everybody up. Nobody's talking about it.
Is we have these fun things. Your amygdala, threats present, stay sharp.
Yes.
Prefrontal.
Danger mechanism.
Yep. Prefrontal cortex says later. We'll deal with this later. And your body tells you to just keep going.
Right.
Like when you're activated, like all of these body responses are going and quickly.
Yes, and sometimes you don't even know why, which I think we're getting into later. But I think that circles back to the amygdala, right? Our smoke alarm for survival and trauma responses is sometimes people don't even know what's going on until we explain it to them or they figure it out in terms of like, oh, wow, this reminds me of that. Some people don't even have the insight for that. So your brain just keeps you going in order to stay alive, no matter the cost. It's a big one.
Flight, fight, freeze. Sometimes fawn.
Yes.
Those are your bodily responses when something is going down. A lot of you guys like to go into fight real quick.
Which doesn't actually mean literal fight, right? But it can, it just means I got to fight through this, whatever is respective of like the situation that you're going through, right? Maybe you're reactive and that feels a lot like fight. I think I lean more towards fight. More so now. I think in the past I would freeze and fawn, but now I'm like, no, what we're going to do is this.
Or it makes me absolutely chuckle when Crystal is like getting startled in the hallway and she's like immediately putting up her fist. I'm like, stop trying to fight people in the office.
She's like, these hands are ready to eat for everyone, right?
She's all of 5 foot nothing.
One of my patients I said that in one of our sessions with one of my patients, and I was like, man, these hands are ready to eat for everyone. He's like, equal rights, equal lefts. I was like, I got to write that down. That's Crystal. She's like, I got you no matter what.
She's trying to figure out what could be used as a weapon. I'm like, look here, little Marine.
We got to have her on here at some point because I feel like we talk so much about the other people and they're never on here except for Christina. But I think circling back to what our brain prioritizes. It's not denial. It doesn't make you weak. It's your brain literally doing its job. It never ceases to amaze me how like complex our brains are and what it will actually do to protect us from things that we can't handle. And so our trauma responses usually wait until we feel relatively safe to make themselves known, which then freaks you out a little bit more. I feel like typically that's how people end up here, right? Like they've been fighting for survival for so long and then they slow down enough to feel something and they're like, ew, what is this?
It comes hard and fast.
Yes.
Because once safety happens, they're like, oh, I haven't known this. And like, it is an emotional flood. And we're about to really get into that. Like we're borrowing from the future and high stress service roles. Like we're constantly like pushing past exhaustion, compartmentalizing emotions. And that's where it happens for most. Like
Yeah.
we're going to organize it into like these files, these boxes, and I'm going to leave it for later. And when later hits, we don't know what to do with it.
No. No, you see that a lot. I would say for like, remember when we sat with Kendall, if you've been a long time listener, and we sat with my sister, who's a dispatcher, that was one of the big things that we talked about, how they compartmentalize things because there's no closure and there's moving on from the next to the next all day long or all shift long. Same thing with other first responders, but I feel like 911 dispatchers have to compartmentalize a lot more than anybody else. or those in combat.
Using dark humor constantly. Oh, I mean, I love
I do
being
too.
in session with our first responders because of this, because like I get the best jokes, but also like it is
It's so
their
dark.
it's it is like their best and shittiest coping skill in the world.
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever like confronted someone about their use of humor as a trauma response because they're usually the jokes are so dark. I'm like, bro, like I don't know if I should laugh or not. Right? It definitely puts us in a weird position because we're like, okay, that's funny, and also we need to talk about that. Right? We're gonna circle back to that later because that was extremely dark. What are we hiding
Absolutely.
with that humor, please? Put that stuff forward.
And I see this the most, prioritizing everyone else over themselves.
Facts. We do that.
Oh yeah, because it's easier to worry about someone else than worry about ourselves. Because
Yep.
you know, I can fix you. I don't. That's not count.
I don't even know that I'd be so bold to say that, but it's easier for me to sit with other people in their chaos than think about mine, which is why my therapy is so hard because I'm like, you see it in session two as a therapist because your patients are talking about everybody else except for themselves. And you're like, well, hold on. How is this affecting you? And you're like, yeah, I'll get to that. And then they never do because all they want to do is talk about other people. Maybe that doesn't mean that they're caring about them, but it's easier to like not so much project, but we're like, we're going to use this and bitch about these things versus how I've been this past week, which was awful. Until like the last 10 minutes. And they're like, actually, I had a meltdown. And you're like, what?
You don't say.
You don't say. Sorry, we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna need you to roll through. Give me the cliff notes.
Stop doorknobbing us.
Yes. But that stuff only works for a really short period of time.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually, and Seth said this, if I had $1 for every time I said this, I'd be rich. That stuff's gonna catch up with you. And usually when it catches up with you, it is,
Retirement is the big one. Retirement
yeah,
for my police officers, my veterans, because y'all been holding it back, especially with the feelings later portion of things. And retirement comes and it's the identity shift. It is the I have time to actually feel my feelings, and I don't know what some of these feelings are because I haven't been allowed to feel them for 20, 25, 30 years. These are new things to me because I
yeah.
wasn't allowed to feel them then, and I am now, and they are overwhelming.
And how many of those people that we have that sit in our office, I feel like it's more common than it isn't, that had awful childhoods and then was like, let me go into the military or let me go be a cop, police officer, whatever, right? And then they're just constantly being traumatized in different ways. Maybe they don't even know what that emotion is that they're feeling. They just know something's not quite right. So many times. So many grown adults that don't know how to express their emotions because they've never felt safe to. Medical leave's another big one.
Yeah, because it comes with that, it's a distortion, but it's the ideology of I'm broke now.
Right, or in medical leave in relation to retirement, right? Because you have some that then it piles up so high and so heavy that they can't even finish out whatever 20 years or whatever they have in their job. And so then they have to go out on leave, disability early, and they're like, this is not how I envision retirement. This makes me a failure. And I'm like, actually, it doesn't, because you can't control any of this.
Yep. Or the ones that are sent to ride the pony at the desk.
Yeah, that would probably mess me up a little bit too. But that's fair because you've been riding so hard beforehand, and now you're just like,
What do I do with myself now?
who am I?
Am I still useful? Because you're so used to on the go, on the go, on the go.
For however many years you've been doing it.
Because sometimes it is a promotion, but it's not what you're used to.
Right. And some people are put on a desk for other reasons that will then cause even more issues, right? Say you were involved in something horrible as law enforcement or whatever, and so they have you riding a desk for a while. That's usually a pretty big stressor too, because now you have this perceived failure in your mind too. instead of it being like an actual promotion or something that you were looking forward to. But it is definitely a shift regardless.
And deployments, they come with a lot.
I feel like the end of deployment, from like personal experience and watching someone be on deployment and come home, it takes them a while to reacclimate to like this life compared to the one where their life was threatened 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a huge shift. And I think once they're a little bit more regulated, they can see like, maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't good.
Yeah. Divorce. That's a especially depends on how long.
Right. And why is another one, right? That divorce is like, I feel like we could talk about each one of these in their own thing for a
So
long
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You know, getting injured,
On
I would also,
whether it's on the job or off the job.
right, or having some type of chronic illness that causes you to not be able to do your job fully, that is going to be debilitating-ish over time. But getting injured on the job is huge too. Or just losing, and what am I trying to say? Like losing mobility, right? We've got some that are can't walk, or they have to use assistance, or they can't see, or they wear hearing aids because they can't hear. And so all of those things definitely serve to alienate them if possible, and if we're not dealing with it.
Becoming empty nesters, I think, is a big one, just because kids kind of fill that quiet for a
Well, they
minute.
make you busy.
Yep.
They
And
keep you busy.
so when they are gone, like, what then? And then you are left with yourself and your thoughts too.
And God forbid you have your kids leaving home along with retirement
Mm-hmm.
and or coupled with some type of chronic illness and or divorce or life change. And you've got multiple things on this list that are
I didn't put this on there because I had written this before, kind of what's going on right now. When news hits too close to home or what you've previously experienced. And I think it brings up a lot of past feelings, especially for our veteran community right now. And it can reactivate and bring up those things that, like, oh, I thought this was already dealt with.
yeah.
And it didn't.
Yeah, we thought it was over, right? You felt safe for a bit and now you don't feel it anymore because it's just starting all over again. I think a lot of veterans specifically, well, first responders too, and we look at it in different lenses in terms of like 9/11, right? We were chatting about that before we started. We watched that on live TV. There were some people that were there in person, and then a lot of that was a precursor for a lot of the people that we're seeing now to go into the military. That's been 20 years ago. Well, no,
Yeah.
2001. So it's been over 20 years, right? So these people are getting ready to retire.
They are
And now
retiring.
they
Yeah.
are retired. Well, some of them are, some of them aren't. Some of them are going to be in forever, but they've all retired or what have you, or they got out. And so they look back on that and they're like, crap, now we're doing this again. We thought this was over. So the relative safety was there. Now it's gone.
Yep. And when they do find that quiet moment and their body goes, we have that space and we have to feel it now. Ooh, it's uncomfortable, and some roll with it and some absolutely do not.
Having like space and sitting still and quiet moments is very strange for me too, which I've been fighting with the last couple of weeks because I was living underwater. I was like just barely keeping my head above the surface for so long where I was so behind. And now that I'm not, I'm like, what else is he doing? Like, am I forgetting stuff? Or do I really just have free time, which feels really strange for someone who has not had that for so long. It's like, let me make myself busy again. And then Peggy and
There.
Christina are like, no, you're not allowed to make yourself busy right now.
But I could do this. And I think that's what happens a lot in a lot of these situations. Let me go fill that void. No, you should worry about yourself.
Right, because then they're like, well, I have all this time. What am I going to do with myself? And I'm like, well, what do you like to do? And they're like, I'm sorry, what? No, you don't know? You don't have any hobbies? It's because they don't know who they are because they've been someone else for so long that asking themselves what they would really like to do is also super uncomfortable because that feels selfish to prioritize yourself.
So what does delayed trauma look like in real life?
This is where
Because
people's, yeah,
yeah.
they're like, something's not right, right? Like they might not be able to put their finger on it, but they know that something's not quite right with them. And delayed responses that like we would see and be like, yeah, no kidding, right? Like the irritability, the rage, like the reactivity out of nowhere, right? And sometimes it might not be out of nowhere. You might feel like it's justified, but your response to it is so over the top. The people around you are like, it's so not that serious. But that's because your brain and your amygdala is like, we're in danger, we gotta go. We gotta fight this. And you're like, but not really. A lot of people don't have that insight until they sit with it for a minute. Emotional numbing. Yeah. This is like you were numb before, and now you're still because we can't get you to feel anything other than nothing.
Because a lot of them don't know the vast range too, unless they are introduced to said feelings.
Yes. So many grown adults. They're like, I don't have the word for it. And they use a lot of anger, right? Like they project a lot of anger. And I'm like, anger is super complex. What's behind that? I don't know. So you have to go backwards and teach them how to identify emotions and put a name to it. And just name it, put it out there. I feel like nightmares and the memories that come without you wanting them there, I think along with the irritability and rage are usually like the two that people definitely associate with PTSD and trauma. And they're like, oh my God, now I'm having nightmares. Or I'm not sleeping because of them. I'm afraid to have them or whatever.
Panic with no obvious trigger. Just what do I do? What do I do? Oh my goodness! There's no calm. There's no calm after the storm.
And then there's the anticipation of the panic symptoms again at a future date because you've already done it. You know that feels miserable. It's awful. You're exhausted afterwards. So now you're anticipating, I don't know what that was that triggered me. So now I'm worried about everything.
Let me go and identify all the veterans and the cops in restaurants, hypervigilance in civilian settings. I can tell y'all where you're sitting.
Yep. Back to the wall. Always clocking the exits. And depending on what form of first responder you are, if you're law enforcement or not, or even in the military, mostly first responders, they're also watching people's hands, which was something new that I learned probably a year or so ago, where people are like law enforcement, especially, are clocking people's hands to see what they're reaching for. And I was like, I never thought of that, but it makes sense.
Even so when they're out walking in Walmart or Target, they scan.
There's a difference between situational awareness and you being hypervigilant all the time. All right? Situational awareness will save your life. Tell people that nonstop. But being hypervigilant impairs your ability to function in public with your family, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're at the movies and you can't focus on the movie because your eyes deadlocked on that exit, door or the people that are coming in, you're like people watching in the dark, that's a problem. That's more than situational awareness, which is a question some people need to ask themselves. Why are you smiling at me like that?
Difficulty sleeping after leaving the job.
What's next? What am I supposed to do now?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be up for anything, so.
Yeah. Difficulty, the feeling disconnected from family, friends, all of the things. Because, it's easier to disconnect than telling them what's going on.
I think there's a lot of negative thought processes involved in that too, right? Well, it's easier to be disconnected than tell them. Well, maybe they won't care. Maybe they're going to say I'm being dramatic. And there is still very much a stigma related to mental health, especially PTSD, where they're like, I don't want to be a statistic. I'm fine. I dealt with it. And if admitting I have PTSD means I'm weak, then I won't do it.
Yeah.
It's not. I think it's much harder to do the work when it comes to PTSD than it's not to.
Because a lot of them go through the shifts and the identity after service. Oof.
Yes.
Oof. Every single one of them.
You went through that personally, not just with your patients.
Oof. Like, I'm the proud owner of one of y'all, so like, I already
Proud
get
owner of a retiree. Being anxious when things slow down,
this.
that's me. I'm like, what's happening here? Because sitting still and resting and like sitting in the moment is so uncomfortable for people that are
You're used
constantly
to
doing.
you're used to the chaos.
Yes, yes. People, it makes me laugh. People are like, oh, she just can't sit still. She's just always moving and she's so productive. And I'm like, no, she's not. Yeah, sure, she's productive. She's getting stuff done, but she's only doing that because it's easier to do that than it is to sit with the anxiety of being still and doing nothing.
I mean, I have ones right now that are like, I was fine. Why now? What do you mean I have PTSD?
Just
I'm
what I
like
said.
I'm like, you've had it. Let's not dismiss it or diminish it, but you've had it. We
Right.
just now we have words for it.
And your nervous system has regulated to some degree enough for you to be able to feel whatever it is you're supposed to be feeling instead of numbing it out for years and years. I have one right now that was going through something really difficult for probably the last year or so. And that situation resolved. And so for the last couple of sessions, she's like, I am so tired. Why am I so tired? I was like, because you're not in survival mode anymore. You were in survival mode for over a year, and now you have taken away that stressor, giving your body a chance to slow down and stop and rest. So it's like, we need to sleep because we're tired. Living in survival mode is exhausting.
And then we have chronic trauma and the role that this plays, because it's not always just like one bad call, it's multiple, where it's multiple deployments. And first responders and military rarely experience like single incident trauma.
No, no. I think that, like, you think about that, people go back to like big T, little t traumas, and we don't really use that speak anymore. It's like a single incident or repeated exposure over and over again to something that's aversive or life threatening or what have you. And so it's this choice to constantly be re traumatized or traumatized again in a different way over and over and over again every single day you put on your uniform.
And that's a lot of things. Like, we have the repeated exposure, we have moral injury, and we're actually going to get into that more next week. Accumulated losses, responsibility for others' lives, and the survivor's guilt thing. That is,
I talked about that in my own,
yeah.
right? I talked about that therapy unpacked with the moral injury and the quiet weight left behind. If you didn't watch it, you should probably go watch it now.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about that. People like die and you feel some type of responsibility about it, whether it was a moral injury or not. It is still this chronic trauma over and over again, which then creates this complex trauma that then shows up later. Again, we're paying the price.
After the danger ends. And this is a lot of our retirees, after structure disappears, identity shifting, and control, or your perceived sense of control, decreases.
Yes.
Because we always have to go over that. It's like, what's actually in your control and what's not in your control.
I think there's a comfort for a lot of the people that join the military that come from abusive or complex traumatic households as children to have that sense of identity given to you, the structure set out for you already. There's no like thought processes involved. It's like, I'm getting up, I'm doing this was expected of me, move on. And then when you retire, it's like, well, what now?
Well, and that's why retirement and transitions are like the high risk periods. And like, I've dealt with this shit in my own house. As the mission ends, the uniform comes off, structure disappears, adrenaline drops, community changes, because it is a microcosm. In a microcosm,
Yeah.
You're separated by your own branches. That's one community in its own community. They have a brotherhood or a sisterhood, and they depend on each other. They have been given a rule book to follow on how to sleep, how to walk, how to talk, how to eat.
Where to go, when to do it.
Josh
Right?
still eats like in 3 minutes flat, and I'm like, bro, nobody's gonna take it from you.
literally.
It's been over 20 years. Nobody's taking it from you. Slow down. Enjoy it. It'll be cool.
It's his time is more important than that. He's got to eat quickly because he's got other more important things he's got to do. Eating is not required.
But you can also see it because, like, we're at the 3-year marker and I can see the itch too. It's time to do something else because now the predictability from like the civvy job. Look, the civvies get on his nerves. His job, and it's hilarious to watch because he holds himself to such a high standard that when others don't do it, it pisses him off.
It's not fair to hold civilians to the same standard as someone who's retired from the military because they've had a lifetime of doing other things or being told what to do and when to do it and all these. Civilians don't have that issue unless you are, a law enforcement or something is a little bit different. But like for us, I mean, there is no issue there.
Yeah, but for a lot of them, it's like the brain's losing that predictability, that purpose, and that belonging. This is why I think a lot of the veterans are drawn to each other because of like that brotherhood and sisterhood with each other, because like they walk up to each other and talk to each other, like just hearing them go back into like shop talk and the way that they talk to each other is phenomenal, and it is wonderful to see, just because that is their community, because he doesn't like my husband doesn't relate to some of the civilians in the same way that he does his veterans.
Yeah. And it does give them that sense of like, oh, I still have this brotherhood, sisterhood still, but there are so many of mine that will refuse to interact with other veterans. I think because for some, there's this expectation that, well, what do you have and what did you go through or whatever that looks like. And they don't want to do that with civilians or veterans alike. Because people find out that you're a veteran and that becomes a huge deal.
That's when we see some of these things, like when trauma symptoms often spike. We're going to see this in retirement and the big transitions, how this wears off, why it becomes problematic for our retirees, especially not because like service broke them, but because service kept them from functional long enough to
Yeah.
service kept them functional long enough to survive. It just kept them going. It kept them in that drive mode. Like, I have something to do. I have something to keep going. And that's why our retirees I have fun with those. I have
I
fun
don't
with
have as
those.
many, not like full retirees, right? Like I have some that were like medically retired or whatever, but it's similar in that it's not the same type of retirement where like sometimes the medical retirement is worse because they weren't expecting that or they got injured or they got sick or whatever that looks like. And they had planned on retiring
Yeah,
legit and now they can't.
and it's the longing and it's that sense of, sometimes for them it's that sense of failure. I should have been able to. Now I'm broken.
And then they get this jaded sense of like this jaded mindset of like, well, that's what I was supposed to do and now I can't do it. So what am I good for now?
Yeah.
Literally anything else. Anything else. Right? Also, moving on. Trauma stored into the body keeps the score. Okay. If you are one of my patients, I'm like, the body keeps the score. Right? I need to just like get the big poster and frame it on the wall because it's true. Your memory is not great, which is by design, because if you remembered the things that gave you those body sensations, they would be extremely dysregulating, and your brain does what? Keep you functioning in survival mode. So if you can repair. It's only Monday. Why am I having such a hard time with words today? If you can repair that body brain disconnect and put feelings and words to the body sensations, that's pretty powerful, I think, for a lot of people. But some can never get there. They're like, I just have this feeling and it's a bad feeling. Okay. I don't know where it's coming from. Got it. Let's figure it out. Sit with it.
Your body remembers so much stuff, because like that's why like brain goes into activation mode with smells and sounds and heart rate changes, all sorts of things. starts freaking people out. They're like, but I smelled this and I started like having a panic attack. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to happen.
Yep, yep. If Christina was here, she would be telling the story about her patient who had an aversive reaction to someone in the waiting room week after week, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And it turns out that another human in the waiting room had on some type of perfume or cologne that reminded her of the trauma she went through. She didn't know up here what was going on, but her body surely did, because every time she was in the room with that same person, she would have this panic attack. I feel like that's the perfect example of like your body keeping the score and you not really know. You're like, I feel like crap and I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
But it's easier to push it down and avoid it than it is to try to figure out what it was that triggered you along this path.
We are noticing how these things are starting to connect with like things that have no clear medical reasons, chronic pain, GI issues. I don't know how many out there have IBS.
Yeah.
Headaches, fatigue, and just like TMJ type issues. Feeling on edge for no reason. How many? The TMJ, and it bugs me. I don't know how much, because there's like no help for the TMJ portion of things. And I'm like, it's trauma.
The dentist is like, you need to relax. Okay. Thanks, bro. Relax your jaw. I'm sorry. I had one time that last, she was like, oh my God, I went to the dentist because I thought something was wrong. She's like, my jaw is so tight. Like I'm so clenched. I'm like, dude, it's not your teeth.
Hmm?
It's
I'm like,
you.
you won't stop clenching.
Yep. I feel that in my legs. I feel like my legs are constantly tense. They're constantly like, muscle. Like I'm ready to just take off running. I sometimes have an awareness of it and sometimes I don't. But at the end of the day, my legs feel like I've run a marathon because they've been tightened up and relaxed so many times that they probably do feel like they've run a marathon when really I've just been sitting here.
Oh, this one's gonna suck. Why talking about it can feel worse before it feels better.
This is an important moment for us. We need to milestone mark this because this is a myth buster, I feel like, for therapy. Several reasons, and not so much the one you wrote down, but because I want to say this out loud. Just because you have PTSD and you come to therapy for that, there is no pressure from us to discuss that. We're not going to be like, tell me your traumas. Actually, we don't want you to
like
tell us.
you do not have to like just disclose all of it in the first session or even the first 6 months or the first 12 months.
No. Whatever your relative safety feels like in terms of talking about it is what we're going to accept. And there is really no pressure even after that to be like, oh, let's circle back to the traumas you told me. No, it's like, what's going on? How is this impacting you? Because sometimes you are not feeling safe enough to talk about it for a long time, a very long time. And we're not going to be like, well, you're not making progress, trying to talk about your trauma. That's not how that works.
The VA can suck it for thinking y'all are supposed to be cured in 12 sessions.
That's a little bit raw for me right now. I mean, just move on because I'm not trying to throw shade today.
I am.
But when you finally slow down and get into therapy and people start feeling all these big emotions and they're remembering things, which I think we're getting into in a little bit, that they didn't remember before, that all makes sense because you finally started to slow down and your relative safety feels more comfortable than it did before. For now.
It's gonna suck because the protective wall may eventually come down and you feel comfortable enough to talk about it. And there may be some, sneaky shit that comes up and be like,
it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't remember that. I didn't know that was there.
Even if you're just a verbal processor, sometimes that stuff comes out and you're like, ew. And especially if you're doing something like EMDR or even brain spotting, you're like, that's gross. But afterwards, you're like, okay, you've got some insight into it because I love that you've put in here that the nervous system is thawing. It's true, especially if you've been frozen for so long in place. We're not wanting you to relive the trauma. We want to teach you that you don't need to be in survival mode anymore. Like that got you here. Great. Now let's slow down and take a step back and keep you from circling back into that every single time.
And emotions feel stronger at first because like it may be the first time in 20 years or 30 years that you've allowed yourself to notice it.
Mm-hmm.
to sit with it, to be friendly with it.
I think you see that a lot. I see that a lot with grief too, right? And not just like PTSD or prolonged grief, grief in general, in terms of like that person died and I don't have to deal with it only in my way. And then 20 years later, it comes up bubbling to the surface because they never sat with it. They never really felt how it really feels, you know? So trauma as well as grief, especially if it was traumatic,
And I
a
think
traumatic loss.
this is one of the big misconceptions. Healing isn't just like going to therapy is like just reliving your trauma over and over. No, 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 no.
You don't want to do that.
We're here to help teach your brain and body that like the danger's over. That it is okay to talk about it. It's okay not to talk about it.
Right. That comes with your relative comfort in talking about it. But especially us here, and I don't know about other trauma therapists, but like I'm not going to let somebody re-traumatize themselves. I'm like, pause. Shh. We're going to stop you right there until we do something more intense. We're going to just put that in the box for now because I don't need you leaving here feeling like you're right back in that moment again. No, we're good. Let's teach you how to regulate first, and then we'll circle back to that because none of them know.
But I think that's a lot of it is like, let's learn regulation first. We can talk, no problem. But let's learn some stability.
Yeah. So then when you leave here and you're remembering what we talked about today, you don't lose it. I think it's also why for me, like the psychoed is so important because I think once it's spoken out, it's normalized. And then you're adding the element of like your brain is doing this, it's neurobiology. This is this, this is that. And people are like, wow, I never knew that. Great, let's keep moving. Why do I get so mad when the coffee's empty? Because your window of tolerance is like this big. You have no distress tolerance, period. So everything sends you over the edge. We got to rectify that first before we can move into the heavier stuff.
This is why CBT does not work in trauma.
Say it again, Peggy. Say it again.
CBT does not work in trauma. For all you little therapists out there, stop trying to use this while they're dysregulated. Ain't nobody going to answer a thought-provoking question while they're dysregulated.
It's because it's a top-down approach.
Mm-hmm.
I get these. My brain confuses these. It's a top-down approach. You need a bottom-up approach for trauma. Even trauma-focused CBT doesn't. It's a fancy way. It sounds like that you're doing something really fancy, but it's really just what you were doing before. You're just focusing on people's trauma, which still doesn't work. You need something more than CBT. Now, do we say that we all do CBT? It's like the most basic way to learn how to do therapy. We expand on it even more with DBT or IFS, parts work, EMDR, something else, right? All of these things are really helpful in treating trauma, and CBT is not one of them. And if you're, I just need to say this really quickly. If you're looking for a therapist and you're like, wow, this looks like a really good fit, they might be a phenomenal therapist. But if you have trauma and they are not trauma informed or trained in some way, shape, or form, you're not going to get anywhere. Because they're not going to know how to sit with it with you. And B, they're not going to know where to direct you or even give you the amount of psychoeducation moving forward that you need to learn how to regulate and move on and why you've been in survival mode and all the things. So that's like the little check mark you want to look for on somebody's Psychology Today profile. Because they can, you can check every single box that you want on Psychology Today without having to prove it. So if you come across a therapist that has everything checked, run away. Choose someone else because you can't be trained in all of those things and you can't know it all.
Please see the Morals and Ethics PSA about practicing with out of the scope of your competence. Because remember, just taking a PESI course does not make you competent.
Hold on. If you, speaking of, I'm so glad you said that. I love PESI courses, okay? I am not throwing shade on there. I've learned so much in some of those courses, but I know the difference between one of those trainings and an actual real, like didactic, live back and forth training that's going to give us the skills that we need. So if you learned how to do EMDR on PESI, you did not learn how to do EMDR. Ask your therapist that you're going to see about their EMDR training. Right. A good
that
one.
Was 6 months. That was 6 months.
6 months. 6 months of hardcore stuff. And if they're like, oh, I did it, where'd you get it? A good therapist that's not worried about it's going to tell you. Someone else is going to be very protective of that. No, I did it here. Here's my completion certificate. It took me 6 months to finish it. Just the training portion. Okay. Anyways, I have a lot of people that come that don't want to do EMDR because they had another therapist who was probably PESI trained or Facebook trained or wherever on how to do EMDR, and they're not doing it appropriately. Period. Okay, sorry. Back to our topic.
So if trauma is showing up now, it doesn't mean you failed back then. It means you were strong enough to survive, and now your system is asking for care. So delayed trauma is what? It's not weakness. Yeah, it's not weakness. Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's not weakness.
You said it is, not it's not.
It is not. It is not.
Delayed trauma is not weakness, and it's not failure. It's a failure to cope, but that's the only way that you knew how to survive.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a failure.
My women and my men are both equally like in this grouping. Be like, I'm not strong if I have to do this. Like, stop it. Because I can't just say it's one group.
The strongest thing.
Yeah, because it's like I can't say it's just men or it's just women. No, it's both of y'all. Stop it.
Yes, and also I like to say, well, how's it been working out for you so far? Mm-hmm. Right? Like if you think coming to therapy is weak, it's actually harder, like I said before, to deal with your stuff than it is to just ignore it and repress it and pretend like it didn't happen, because that stuff's going to bubble up like a volcano eventually. In some way, shape, or form.
Y'all had to adapt for survival.
All this accumulated stress releasing, like my patient I referenced earlier, all that accumulated stress for over, if you can imagine a year, and now she's so tired for the last couple of weeks, imagine what you've been doing for 20 years in your job, either as a, you're a veteran now, you were active duty, or you're law enforcement or whatever, and now all of a sudden you can relax. That's what it is. That's what it is. You're seeking regulation.
So things that we can actually do: trauma-informed therapy. Look, talk therapy is great, but we need to understand how to help our nervous system. That's why we need DBT and those things. We have to understand, we have to help it.
Yes. And it's not just talk therapy is great, but you also need something a little bit stronger. The peer support thing makes my eyes twitch a little bit, because I know for a fact that the majority of the people that have the use of peer support don't use it like they should, for a lot of different reasons that we won't get into today. But having someone either on a peer support team or a colleague or a friend or someone that knows what you're going through, that can sit with you in that space and be like, I've been there, I got you, right? Like, I know how that feels, is more important than talking to someone on the actual peer support team, right? Being regulated in sleep, God.
They got the most messed up sleep habits out of everybody, and I understand, because we're still trying to get a routine in general going again. That isn't.
There's also that anticipation of the next day, right? Like, I found that with myself, where it was like, I would be so tired, but then I couldn't sleep because now I'm anticipating everything that's going to happen the next day. The moment I wake up, the moment my feet hit the floor, go, run, work yourself to death, which is a lot easier than sitting with it, even still. Your sleep is so important. If you're not sleeping, your brain is not doing the work it needs to do while you're asleep. So then you're just constantly in this disgusting state of mind. Period. Movement.
Touch some grass. Go touch some grass.
I was getting ready to say that. You took my line.
Touch some grass.
What we really mean is touch some dirt, because, you need to stick your hands in the dirt. Get your hands dirty. Okay? If you don't want to get your hands dirty, wear gloves. Do something. I
Get
always compare
outside.
it to like sticking your feet in the sand at the beach, how relaxing that feels. It's the
But we're about to go into spring. Get outside. Get some actual sunlight. Like
Are we?
we're
Because it's
about to.
supposed to snow today.
It is 75 degrees where I'm at, man. So
We're in
like
different places, and that's unfair.
like I'm about to go into spring and I need, well, look, the pollen is about to make me break out everywhere because
The devil's
my,
fallen.
thank you, my overreactive autoimmune disorder and the eruptions that are about to just blister all over my arms.
I'm not looking forward to that. All I want to do is hit the top off my Jeep
I
and
just
put my plants back outside again. That's it.
I, I just want to go outside and like see the sunlight because like I am an extra version of pasty white and I know I need daylight.
Sunlight is for plants, nothing else.
Look, I am a complicated house plant, okay?
Yeah.
And like I'm doing my best to try to survive like they are.
You're like the houseplants that were thriving outside, and then I brought them in for winter, and they're like, yeah, we need the sun, we need humidity. I'm like, stop, act right. Shame shelf over there. You see it? We're gonna put Peggy on the shame shelf. I'll just pass away in the cold, so I have to just stay where it's warm. That's all.
Yep.
But finding purpose after your service, whatever that looks like.
Yep. And it can be whatever you need it to be, whether it is volunteering, just be hanging out with your kids, or like, finding another job, or just settling down.
But what job, Peggy? Because I don't know who I am or what I like or what I'm good at. Because in the
Exactly.
military, I did 70
They
million different jobs.
and it's okay to find job after job. What is it? The statistics are 80% of veterans and like first responders, you're going to quit your first job. You're going to quit your first job after the first year. 80%.
Yeah. Well, I think that also creates a problem, another identity crisis for people because they're like, oh, this is your MOS, but we're going to have you doing this because we need you over here. And then we're going to have you over there. And then after 5 years, they move you into something new. So when you get out, you're a veteran, sure. People know that you're a good worker and all these things, but you have no discernible skills for one single thing. So it's like, I can do all these things.
You know what? If
And
being a barista at Starbucks makes you happy, do you, boo?
right. There was a time where I worked in psych for so long and I was in school and I moved back here because I was going through some life changes. And I was like, I need to go work somewhere where I don't have to use any of the knowledge I have, where it's almost just like a mind-numbingly boring
Yeah.
job, right? Because it was too much to go back into it. I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So I was like, because they were like, you're kind of overqualified for this job. Why do you want to work here? I was like, I need something different than what I've been doing.
And I hear that, I think a lot as I don't want responsibility. Cool. Go find something with no responsibility. Be
You
a
don't have to
Walmart
have,
breeder.
yeah, work at
Go work.
Chick-fil-A,
Go
man.
work at Home Depot.
There's lots of things that you can get into where you don't have to manage anything, right?
Yep.
We can help you find that. Learning how trauma works. This is my hard on for psychoed because the knowledge reduces the shame and it validates your experience and that you're not crazy. How many times have your patients with PTSD been like, well, I'm just crazy, I'm insane? Not really. I mean, maybe a little bit because you shaved
That
your
makes them
head
fun.
and cut bangs. Stop it. Stop.
That just makes
Okay.
it fun.
I think hairstylists should have to have a signed letter from someone's therapist to cut bangs. Because I'm like, at least you didn't cut bangs, but you did shave your head. So are we okay? Right? No. It puts words to it and it shines a light on it, right? And it validates that like you're not insane, that this is your body's reaction to what you've been through. And that doesn't have to stay that way forever. And that the statistics are heavy in terms of all these people who actually have trauma. It doesn't mean you're weak. Trauma doesn't mean that you're weak.
Waits until you're safe enough. It just waits until you're safe enough to feel.
So your nervous system is regulated enough for you to feel it, and then it hits you again because it didn't suck enough the first time. You gotta go back through it again, right?
No,
But
it's
that's
like,
what we're here for.
yay.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. So, yeah. So if you've been following us this long, we were supposed to have an episode come out. Today is Monday. We were supposed to have one come out today, and then everybody was fighting the plague, so we had to postpone it, which is why you have the PSA out. But we also have the PSAs. We've got Therapy Unpacked, and we have this one, our OG, that you all should be watching because they all connect in some way, shape, or form, which I hope is by design. Or maybe we're just not realizing that we're doing it. It's great. I'm here for that. A lot less brain work here. Brain work? Is that a thing? Dude, I don't know what's wrong.
I'm just doing a good job at doing what I'm doing, okay?
We're making it. We're making it. So if you need help finding a therapist, we're all here. Psychology Today is another good option. Feeling your feelings now doesn't make you weak. It means that you're ready to feel them. So give us a call because we're here. We want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Holding the Line with Got Your Six, where we are just a bunch of therapists who talk about the shit nobody wants to talk about. We hope you got something useful out of it. Stay tuned for more of our upcoming episodes every other week posted to our YouTube channel, Holding the Line GYS. If you want to help support our podcast, please like this video and subscribe to our channel and share this video with others you think may get something useful out of it. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we will post useful information, dark humor, and more of the shit nobody wants to talk about. Go forth and do magical shit, everyone.
To my coworkers, can y'all just like it? Please?
You know what really...
Asking a whole lot, but come on.
I will see even just a reel for our podcast, and it will have 700 views and 1 like. And I'm like, how did y'all sit here through that whole video and not be like, here's a like button? Same thing with the videos on YouTube. Why?
There's enough of it at our at our workplace that I'm like, okay, I gotcha.
I get real in my feelings if we bring up something that we talked about in the podcast. I was like, if you watch the podcast, you would know that we just talked about this. Same thing with family. I'm like, I just want to put this out there. Meghan Markle's best friend introduced her to Prince Harry. And she is married to that man now with beautiful children. And my friends and family don't even watch my podcast. I'm starting to wonder what kind of love we actually have for each other that Meghan Markle's friend had that y'all don't. She introduced her friend. She could have done it herself, but she was like, no, Meghan, here's Prince Harry. Y'all can't even like our podcast show. Rude. Anyways, thank you for listening if you made it this far and if you're going to like it. And we'll see you on the next one. I do get so in my feelings about that, though. I'm like, how? Maybe they just don't like it.
And they're too afraid to tell us.
I would rather you say your podcast is crap than just passively watch it and not react at all. Give me something. Anything.
Haley's too nice to tell us it's trash.
I don't know that I'm going to say the people that we work with have time or space to even watch it as much as we would like them to. Chastity has said in the past, she's like, I don't know how you guys do that. Get on the screen and make videos of yourselves and talk. And I'm like, you just do. I guess that's the difference between being very introverted and shy versus someone who likes to run their mouth like me. So it's okay. We won't make Chastity come on here, but we will throw her love from out here. Haley too. I think Haley would do it. Need to get her on here as well.